God will work with you, but not for you. By Lao Russell.
Chapter 5 Continued. Mind Consciousness. It is impossible to estimate the value of painting and music to the spiritual unfoldment of man. When one realizes that less than 100 men transformed thousands upon thousands of barbarian stage men into the realms of spiritual consciousness, it should help one to realize the value of every genius to the world. One Beethoven or one Leonardo is worth more in material value to mankind than the value of all the gold and real estate in the world, yet mankind crucifies genius today as he crucified love 2,000 years ago. It is imperative that you more fully understand why there is such an incalculable power in the masterpieces of world geniuses to transform men from sensuality to spirituality. It is equally imperative that you fully understand what is meant by God's language, which you know as inspiration. All down through man's long ages, God has spoken to man. His silent voice spoke to him first as instinct, then as intuition, and then by inspiration. Inspiration is the language of rhythms, which the genius as fully understands as other people understand the language of words. The final or ultimate means of communication between man and God is the language of light that comes to Christ-conscious man. Chapter 7, Christ Consciousness, further describes this final stage of unfolding. World geniuses who talk to God through inspiration hear only the rhythms of nature. These rhythms are in harmony with the universal heartbeat. They are the 1-2 rhythms of the electric pulsations of God's thinking. They are in tune with every action-reaction of nature by being in tune with the infinite. There are no unbalanced or split rhythms in nature, such as those which sensual man makes use of for body excitation, or the whisperings of soft winds in meadows, or the mighty pounding of the surf on seashore sands are in tune with the inbreathings, outbreathings of this planet, or the beating of every living heart in the universe. These are the rhythms which the great masters interpret to uplift and inspire to spiritual ecstasy. These rhythms make one forget body because they synchronize with body pulsations. For that reason, they do not cause physical sensation. Outer thinkers desire sensual rhythms which do not synchronize with body pulsations. Excitation can come to bodies only by changing the rhythm and tempo of their heartbeat. The moment the tempo of a heartbeat is slowed down in any musical rhythm, it slows down the heartbeat of the listener. That is why a baby goes to sleep when the mother croons a soothing lullaby. The power that music has within its rhythms and tempos to affect life is inconceivable. The rhythms and tempos of the great world geniuses uplift the whole world toward its high heavens, and causes those whom it can touch to seek the kingdom of heaven which centers them. Likewise, the discordant and split rhythms that are not in tune with nature and the heartbeat of man multiply the sensations which the purely physical man seeks as entertainment for his body. However, the 1-2-3 balanced rhythm of the waltz focuses attention upon the body by combining both the spiritual and physical emotions. The third beat, which characterizes the waltz, is in perfect balance with the two, and creates the desire for happy movement of balanced rhythms, which combine the physical with the spiritual. Beyond that 3 in musical rhythms one cannot go without splitting one or all of them. The greater the departure from the balanced rhythms of nature to the syncopated rhythms of man's desire for physical sensation, the greater the possibility of spiritual suppression in favor of physical degradation. The power of music to degrade as well as to uplift is well exemplified in the jazz rhythms and tempos which shriek out their degrading power in raucous sounds that violate nature's rhythms, as the sounds of a busy factory violate its peaceful countryside environment. Sensual men do not appreciate the music which deeply inspires inner thinking men. They have not sufficiently unfolded as yet to understand it. The power of spiritually inspired music is so great, however, that many thousands are gradually being transformed by oft-repeated renditions. Classical records are being distributed by the hundreds of thousands, and their effect is one of the most hopeful signs of the times, as well as being one of the greatest demonstrations of the power of music to transform sensual thinkers to spiritual thinkers. The greatest passion of every genius is to give to all the world treasures of heaven that have been given to him. A Beethoven, Mozart, Leonardo, or Tennyson could not possibly withhold his treasures unto himself. Having become aware of their oneness with their Creator, who gives freely of all he has and without motive, they also must give freely and without motive. The reward motive, which is so characteristic of those who are sense-dominated, does not exist in nature. Giving in nature creates a vacuum that can be filled only by a balanced re-giving. Giving in nature is the first half of every electric cycle. It is an impossibility in nature for one half of an electric cycle to remain uncompleted. It must complete itself. It cannot do otherwise. It must void itself by its own balancing counterpart. No one can give, therefore, without a cosmic certainty of being equally re-given. For that reason, the reward motive in nature is not a part of God's plan. For the same reason, it is very difficult for the genius to live in a material world. He must live, however. He must bargain with those who would buy from him. He must sell that which is his greatest happiness to give. It is against his very nature to be compelled to do that. It sickens his very soul, for he is fully aware that he has been born ahead of his time and is compelled to live always in 2 worlds. His great recompense, however, is the fact that he can always escape from the outer world of material things and live in his own inner world of the spirit, where he can commune with God to his heart's content and forget all things else, especially his body. Judged by material standards, the genius is an impractical dreamer, a subnormal who lacks the ability to make money as normal folks do. As children, they are usually low in their marks, for the educational plan of this age stultifies genius by educating the brain instead of unfolding the mind. Thomas Edison was sent home from school with a note from the teacher advising his mother to put him in a school for subnormals. The practice of schools has been to develop a civilization which has learned to remember and repeat, instead of unfolding their imaginative faculties by teaching them to think and know. The intelligence test for high scholarship marks is based upon how many questions one can answer. To attain great heights in that respect, one has to have a photographic memory, which outward-sensed thinkers readily develop. It is impossible, however, for anyone to have a photographic mind. That is why a genius is often considered stupid in school. A great many children are utterly ruined by this process. They may really be the brightest children in the school with strong creative abilities that a few years of suppression of their creative faculties ruin for world purposes. Information is not knowledge. It is of no importance whatsoever that one should remember the date of Caesar's death or the date of the Battle of Waterloo. One might be able to answer every question in the encyclopedia and yet have no knowledge. A student who received a low intelligence rating because he could not remember the name of the river which flowed into the Caspian Sea and the capital of Finland might be consoled by the probability that Shakespeare or Dickens might also not be able to answer these questions. Under such a memory system, the boys who have the greatest initiative, imagination, and resourcefulness could be judged the most stupid, while the plodder with a photographic memory and no initiative could be judged the brightest. Information might be likened to food which will nourish a body when it has been digested and enters the bloodstream. Information can lead to knowledge when digested through reasoning and mind thinking, but as long as it is only brain recording, it is of no value to creative expression. To remember and repeat through experimentation, reasoning, and assembling other brain recordings of observed effects does not constitute knowledge. It but indicates cleverness. This highly technical world of many skills is very much more the result of great cleverness in the assembling of observed effects of motion than it is the result of knowledge. When the world begins to acquire knowledge, it will show the effects of it in human relations instead of chemical and metallurgical relations. The human race has not yet acquired sufficient knowledge to know the law which makes it possible for man to live with man or to know the relation of woman to man. It is too concerned with the application of the many physical laws to the relation of physical matter to give thought to God's one and only law that governs spiritual relations. World desire for knowing what holds the atom together has only an economical and material basis. Such knowledge would be worth untold millions in new machines and comforts for man. That is the basis of world desire for knowledge. It has only a money value. Its spiritual value has not yet entered into human consciousness. For that very reason, God will not let man have that knowledge, and man will never find it while he seeks in the wrong direction. Actually, the answer is right before man's eyes, but he does not recognize it while his eyes have outer vision alone. When inner vision comes through inner thinking, he will then recognize it in all its simplicity. All who have arrived at the cosmic mind state know what holds the atom together, and they do not need cyclotrons to tell them that secret of the invisible universe. Knowledge of cause can never be acquired from motion. It can be acquired only from the source of motion. Empirical knowledge is a term used as a name for the results of sensed observation. Knowledge cannot be gained through the senses, for the senses are unable to see the true picture of any effect of motion whatsoever. No effect in nature is what it seems to be. A three-dimensional objective universe is as much of an illusion as a cinema is an illusion. Truth and reality cannot be deduced from a simulation of truth and reality. This universe of motion is but a cosmic cinema projected upon the screen of space from its light source in thinking mind. Its reality is at its source and not in the projected image.